scale and complexity of Saturday's attack by Hamas shocked leaders across the world, but they came after decades of a relentless and deadly conflict that has killed thousands of people, forced entire generations to grow up under occupation, or created constant anxiety of impending rockets fire or bombings. Here is a summary of the main events of the conflict, which spans 2 centuries. On several occasions this year, hundreds of Israeli forces carried out military raids in the Palestinian city of Jenin. In January, a Palestinian man killed 7 people at a synagogue in East Jerusalem. After a spate of terrorist attacks in Israeli cities, in 2022, Israeli forces killed at least 166 Palestinians in the Israeli-occupied West Bank. In May 2021, the Israeli police raided a mosque in Jerusalem, the 3rd holiest site in Islam, which set off an 11-day war between Israel and Hamas that killed more than 200 Palestinians and more than 100 Israelis. In 2018, at least 170 Palestinians were killed as Israel responded to protests along the barrier fence that separates Gaza and Israel. In 2014, Hamas kidnapped and killed 3 Israeli teenagers, prompting attacks from Israel and rocket launches from Gaza, in a conflict that killed more than 1,881 Palestinians and more than 60 Israelis. In November 2012, Israel killed Ahmed al-Jabari, Hamas military chief, setting off more than a week of an exchange of fire in which more than 150 Palestinians and at least 6 Israelis were killed. In January 2009, Israel and Palestinian groups declared ceasefires. Then Israel withdrew from Gaza and redeployed to the Strip's perimeter. In response to rocket fire from Gaza, Israel launched an attack on Hamas targets in December 2008 that killed 200 Palestinians. Shortly after, they opened a ground war against Hamas. In total, 1,200 Palestinians and 13 Israelis were killed. In January 2006, about a year after the death of the Palestinian leader, the co-founder of the paramilitary organization Fatah, Hamas won the Palestinian paramilitary election. 1 year later, Hamas seized control of Gaza, routing the Fatah forces. In September 2005, Israeli troops pulled out of Gaza, but Israel came under criticism for restricting the movement of Palestinians coming in out of the Strip. In September 2000, a few months after negotiations between Israel and Palestine reached an impasse at Camp David, a second intifada began, with Palestinian youth throwing stones at Israeli police. Support from Hamas continued to grow within Palestine because of its readiness to fight Israel. In 1997, 2 suicide bomb attacks killed 27 people, and Israel Prime Minister said he would wage an incessant war against Hamas. In 1993, Mr. Arafat signed the Oslo Accord with Israel and committed to negotiating an end to the conflict based on a 2-state solution. Hamas, which opposed the deal, launched a series of suicide bombings. In December 1987, Palestinians living in the West Bank and Gaza started the first intifada against Israel. On March 26, 1979, Egypt and Israel signed a peace treaty at the White House, which led to Israel's complete withdrawal from the Sinai Peninsula. The 2 countries agreed on the framework of an agreement to allow for self-rule for Palestinians living in occupied territories. 3 years later, President Reagan expressed his support for their full autonomy with some Jordanian supervision, but Israel rejected the plan. In October 1973, invading forces from Egypt and Syria tried to persuade Israel to negotiate better terms for the Arab countries. Nearly 2,700 Israeli soldiers died in the 19-day war, and thousands were injured out of a population of about 3 million at the time. In June 1967, during the 6-day war, Israel gained control of the Gaza Strip and the Sinai Peninsula. In January 1957, Israel withdrew from Egyptian land, except from the Gaza Strip and the area of the Gulf Aqaba, arguing that the Gaza Strip never belonged to Egypt. In October 1956, a few months after the Egyptian president nationalized the Suez Canal waterway, cutting off Israel from shipping, Israel invaded the Sinai Peninsula and the Gaza Strip. In November that year, the United Nations called for Britain, France, and Israel to withdraw their troops from Egypt. In 1949, the newly elected created State of Israel signed a series of truces with Arab countries that had declared war on it. Under the 1949 agreement, the Gaza Strip was under Egypt's control. Today, the war continues.